Hey folks, it's Dr. Rowe. I am re-recording this video because earlier it was on the wrong mic, hence it was scraggly, and I sent a message out to a couple of people to say how was the sound on that, because I did it this morning just before I was speaking. Now I am still speaking, we're in a lunch break, and I actually wanted to get this out again because I think it's such an important subject and it's kind of linked to what I'm teaching this weekend, which is about real estate, but at the same time we're in the shit economically. I mean, the economy is happening around us. The movement in the economy is happening around us in such a way that it's happening quickly, and for a lot of people, they're not prepared. So I want to tackle this subject of money. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to give you financial advice. I have to say that as a caveat. Seek professional advice from a independent financial advisor. Let me just give you a few thoughts and reflections on an approach that I use. So on that note, very quickly as you're watching this, two things you might want to go and do, because I've only got maybe 8 to 10 minutes with you. What time is it now? Yeah, to be able to share some of this information with you. If you want more detail, I want to talk a little bit about money management. Go and have a read of the Turning Point book, which I wrote in 2011, chapter 12. There's a whole section there on money management, and how to manage what's coming in and how you manage it going out, and where you are allocating those funds to. And I talk about if you've got a lot of money coming in, not a lot, but also if you've got a lot of debt as well, and how to deal with that, because I think for a lot of people they don't do that very well. So the other thing is, if you're a supporter of our podcast, myself and Harminder, now the podcast has gone through a rebrand. I'm just looking at my color here. Can I turn the light down a bit? Sorry, but I'm just feeling like I'm super bright. Is that working? Best we can do. Anyway, sorry, the light's not great. If you're a supporter of the podcast, you might want to go have a look, because we have now got, within the supporting framework, some of the videos that I've created, like a mini series. I say mini series, actually it's not. It's like a 2 to 3 hour intensive process that I take you through on how to manage your money in terms of spreadsheets, future forecasting, snapshot expenses, etc. So go have a look at those too. All right, so that's just a quick direction if you want more detail on this. So the most important thing here is to consider the following. You have to look at your immediate current financial situation and your future financial situation. A lot of people don't do this. So for what happens for a lot of people is that they're earning the money, it comes in and then it goes out, comes in, it goes out, comes in and goes out. And often there's not enough balance there on having some residual. And when people come up to me in an event, when I used to do a lot of live events on property, for example, before we went into the COVID situation, people say, well, what do you mean by residual? And I'd say, well, how much money have you got coming in versus how much is going out? And is there any left over at the end of the month? And they'd say, well, not really. They didn't even understand the concept of residual. And then how are you forecasting that? What do you mean by forecasting? So there's 3 things you need to be mindful of. And I want to put them up here, see if I can just get them on the screen for you. So the first one is management of your money. That's about looking at your finances now. It's like a snapshot of where you're at. So how are you managing literally every penny, every cent, every dollar, every euro that comes into your account? Where's it going? Meaning, how much are you allocating, for example, to your basic living costs? How much are you allocating to the education of your children? How much are you allocating to charity? How much are you allocating to debt management or to investments? And there's a very specific formulaic approach you can use here. And based on a certain amount coming in, you can almost apportion a percentage into these different areas. And they may be separate bank accounts, etc. This is what I talk about in the program that I have, which you can get at if you're a supporter of our new, by the way, our new show. The new podcast is called the Cicado Show. We've gone through some quite rapid rebranding in the last month, which is really exciting, and it's linked to changing turning points. But you'll have to go and find out more about that. So the management of your money is important. Now, bear in mind what's happening at the moment. COVID. Recession is biting very rapidly. You know, we were due a recession about 1.5 years ago. 10 years later, from 2008 2009, it didn't hit us. It's been delayed due to quantitative easing and a whole bunch of other things. That's my personal view. But it is now been brought to its knees rapidly through COVID, and wait till we see the end of the furlough schemes and the end of October, when things start to get kind of scary and people start to realize just how their vulnerability is in terms of their current financial situation. So it's really important to understand what your money is doing and where it's going, and we just had literally this week I had a whole meeting with my accounts manager on this, because we're looking at the personal and the business front as well. If you don't do this, it's just called, I call it credit blur. It's like a blur. You don't actually know what's going on. You don't have any idea of what's happening around you. And let me just get this up here. One of the challenges that I think a lot of people have is simply that although they've got all the right intentions to look after their money, they don't have a system to do it. And I think that's the distinction here. So that's the first thing. How are you managing your money? Start to look at it, start to break it down and compartmentalize it, and know what's happening with those funds. The next one is income and expenses. Now, this is slightly different. I want you to just start to do an exercise right now. A good exercise to do is to go away and look at exactly what's coming in and think about what's going out. And the best way to do this over the next month to 2 months is actually make a list of what's being spent, but then put it into compartments or bank accounts or groupings or whatever you want to call it. Everyone has a different name for it. Simplest way to do this is think of the areas the money's being spent in. So there'll be household groceries, for example. You might have utility bills, you're going to have social spending, you might have educational spending, and you've got to categorize that, because over a 2 or 3 month period you'll start to see where it's going out, and can you tighten up on that, because your objective is to increase what's coming in and reduce what's going out to create a surplus, which is a residual income. If you don't do this, what you're going to find is you're always just staying enough. It's just going out, a bit more coming in, going out, a bit more coming in. If anyone, this makes any sense to anybody, give me a vote on this, let me know. Very important. So income expenses, another very powerful tool that you need to get your head around as well. And then the last one is forecasting. Now, what is forecasting? Forecasting is different to the other two. The other two are a snapshot of what's going on now, whereas we're now talking about looking into the future. And if you didn't see the video this morning and it wasn't clear, hopefully this is making clear, because the sound should be better. But I'm talking about what's going to happen in a month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months. If you can forecast out 24 months, it's worth doing. And I'm doing that, and you should be doing this on the basis that you want to anticipate any positives, but also any negative situations. You might get a bonus coming in, great. You might have a sale of a house coming in, great. We just did the same thing on one of the businesses yesterday. We did some forecasting to see what's going to happen when this happens and this happens. Money spikes up, money spikes down, have to pay that, great. On a personal level, you might have a boiler that you know is playing up. It's going to have to be replaced. If you don't look at instant cash flow right now, in other words, what's coming in, what's going out, your management, your income expenses, and your future forecasting, and they don't tie together, you're going to find yourself in a financial crisis at some point, meaning that boiler you think is playing up, what happens if it does play up and it's like a $4,000 hit, a $3,000 hit, a $2,000 hit, and what happens if that coincides with the fact that you've got some problems with your tyres, they need replacing, but you're kind of putting it off. Each tyre costs 100 quid each, for example, and then all of a sudden that happens at the same time as the boiler. So now you've got maybe 5 or 6, you've got $4,000 worth of boiler, $3,000 worth of boiler, plus another $1,000 worth of tyres, and there's other stuff that's building up, debt that maybe needs to be paid back. So you've got to think ahead. Can you spread that? Can you reduce those outgoings to spread them whilst maintaining that income? The surplus is the residual to pay that down. It's a very specific approach, and it does need to be done properly. A lot of people don't do it, and you know I'm not perfect at it. We work at it. I'm fortunate to have a team around me. I have a couple of people that I work with that help with that, but at the end of the day, it's still your responsibility. So you need to be able to maintain this level of understanding. And the problem is, if you don't know what's going on in your finances, how can you plan? How can you start thinking about the future? How can you start to work on a strategy for becoming financially independent and all these things if you don't even know what your finances are right now? So let me recap. Management is about how you manage what's coming in and what's going out in terms of, you know, what is that flow, and over a monthly basis, how is your money allocated? What percentage goes where? All right. Income and expenses is basically just what's coming in and what am I expensing out, right? Whereas part of management is expenses, but part of management is also what am I investing? Am I giving money to charity? Am I putting money into savings, for example, or other strategies? So management is bigger picture. Income expenses is just what comes in, what goes out on a personal level. Where are you spending? And then forecasting is into the future. Why is this important? COVID is going to kick the hell. Part 2 of this whole cycle we're going through at the moment is going to kick the hell out of people's finances in the next 2 or 3, 4 months. So having some understanding of it now allows you to prepare for the storm, maybe even buckle up, change some interest rates, reduce some stuff, minimize some lending, whatever. Buy yourself some more time, extend some borrowing if you had to stretch it out, to give you a chance to to ride out this next storm. Hopefully that makes sense. Right, I have literally got about 10 minutes before I kick back off with my audience. I hope that is of value to you, and I shall see you on my next live. And hopefully the sound was good as well.